Why did the USA fought a 10-year horrific war in Vietnam they lost against North Vietnamese? Sadly, more than 50,000 soldiers of the US died for a war decided by heartless politicians. The Vietnam War occurred during the Cold War and continued from 1955 until the fall of Saigon in 1975. Following the conclusion of the Second World War, France recognized that the circumstances in Indochina were spiraling, prompting them to establish a puppet regime under French authority. However, shortly thereafter, following the Geneva Agreement of July 1954, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam achieved independence. Following independence, North Vietnam was under a communist regime headed by Ho Chi Minh. During the 1950s, a communist-led movement known as the Viet Minh led to the split of the nation into the Communist North and the Democratic South. The devastation and suppression brought about by the Viet Cong in the South escalated to a point where President Eisenhower declared on April 4, 1959, that the United States would send troops to South Vietnam and offer economic aid to protect American security and national interests. The United States viewed the situation as a danger to the area, believing that if one nation in Southeast Asia succumbed to communism, others would follow suit. In 1960, Eisenhower completed his term and was followed in office by Kennedy. However, the Vietnam policy of America remained unchanged, and troop levels in Vietnam rose to 17,000. During this time, the Diem dictatorship in South Vietnam became more and more intolerable for the citizens. In 1964, the United States asserted that North Vietnamese troops assaulted a U.S. Navy vessel in the Gulf of Tonkin, located east of the nation. This resulted in the approval of the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, which provided President Lyndon B. Johnson extensive powers to employ military force in Vietnam. By 1966, the ground forces of the American Army had grown to 185,000, focusing on operations targeting guerrillas in South Vietnam's rural regions. Even though the Vietnamese lacked a conventional military, their traps, tunnels, and nighttime assaults instilled fear in the Americans, making them feel as though they were in a horror film. The United States started conducting airstrikes on North Vietnam for the first time. This marked the official beginning of the American and Vietnam War. In the village of My Lao in southern Vietnam, 500 villagers, including women and children, were killed by American soldiers, who mistook them for Viet Cong. This event caused widespread publicity in the media, and the American people were slowly starting to question the war. Millions of people took to the streets in various states in 1973. American soldiers started to withdraw from Vietnam within 60 days. However, the war between the North and the South continued for a little longer and ended with the victory of North Vietnam.